Your Excellency, thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and you're on the spot.
Pleasure.
Your Excellency, I want to start off with the economy. Let's discuss the state of the economy in Rwanda. The latest statistics do show you're still growing at, say, just over 8%, and your last 5-year survey has indicated that you dropped in number poor, living under poverty line, to about 12%, which is extremely very good and progressive. But you still have 44.9, say 45% living in poverty. How do you plan to bring those people on board and also reduce the levels of poverty?
Well, to start with, there is a good story behind those numbers. That's the most important thing. And the story is about where we are coming from and the progress we have made. The fact that we've been able to grow consistently for, say, the last 10 years, really, averaging between 7 and 9 percent growth of our GDP annually, has a story about how Rwandans are working hard, maybe also doing the right thing, and that's why there are these positive trends. In fact, also in the reduction of poverty, 12% in the 5 years, has also been inclusive in the sense that behind those numbers we have also been seeing narrowing of inequality in terms of incomes and other things, and widespread growth. So that means we are on the right path. However, as you rightly point out, we are coming from a very low base, almost on everything, but we are growing, so that's the most important thing. So we still have a long way to go. That is the reality of our situation. So what we need to do is to continue doing more of the same we are doing, growing our agriculture, growing the capacities of our private sector, investing more in infrastructure and in tourism, and so on and so forth. These are areas that have been contributing a great deal to this growth I'm talking about. And of course, this could also not happen unless there is good management of our affairs, whether it is in terms of governance, political, economic governance. That is very key. That's very important. It also means that we are able to use properly the few resources at our disposal. We try to make sure that we don't lose a lot in terms of mismanagement, in terms of corruption, in terms of just waste that goes on usually if you don't focus on what needs to be done and how to do it.
In your statement yesterday to the 9th Leadership Retreat, you spoke about poverty being a mindset. With Africa, the trend in the latest World Bank report does say the trend of poverty is actually dropping in Africa. But you still think it is in the mind. And that, could you expound on that?
What I really wanted to say, it's not only in Rwanda where there are these good stories and the positive trends I was pointing to. But at the same time, when you analyze properly, you don't get full explanation why Africa continues to be where we are today, and that is poverty that is rampant and really underdevelopment that we have witnessed in the last several decades, and seeing other countries that were at the same level with Africa 50 years ago, far ahead of us, many times grown their economies than we have done in these last decades. And you cannot find any other explanation other than saying, because if you look at the human resources Africa has, if you look at the natural resources Africa has, and many other things, the whole world, in fact, looks to Africa for different things they need for growing their economies. So which means we have almost everything here in Africa. Yet we continue to lag behind the rest of the world. So what is the explanation? Now, but with these positive trends I was talking about, so showing that actually in some areas, in some parts of Africa, there is this growth happening. It also shows that it is, after all, possible. So if it is possible, and if almost we have got all the tools at our disposal, what remains, in my view, as I keep analyzing, I think it's just that the leaders of Africa, we ourselves, and, well, Africans generally for that matter, haven't really put their mind to it, to say, we can't be here where we are when we have every reason to be making good progress, when we have every resource we need to be making progress. We have the people, we have the raw materials, we have everything. So why doesn't it happen? So it all has to start from how our minds operate in making sure that what needs to happen is going to be seen to happen. What we have done in our own case, when you have mobilized our people and actually looked around and said, you know, all you need is here. Why would you be starving when you can actually engage in agriculture and be able to feed yourself and also have what to take to the market that earns you some income? And when we have worked together and pushed ourselves and done what we have said we needed to do, we've seen results come out. So why hasn't it been happening before? It means maybe we haven't been really putting our mind to it to make sure that we make things happen as they should, connecting what is there that needs to be brought together for these kinds of results. So this is what I was talking about, and I'm strongly convinced that with a mindset change, with setting our targets correctly and really being ambitious, that we need to simply get out of this poverty and move on and build on what there is that we have seen has worked in some areas and it is working in Rwanda, then the takeoff will happen, and it will really be driven by thinking correctly and making sure that you do what needs to be done.
I want to relate this to the dependency syndrome. And you spoke yesterday about the fact that we will not be independent unless we cease to be dependent on foreign aid. But the majority of the African countries continue to get large chunks of their budgets financed by the international community. How then does a country like Rwanda, that is landlocked with no known or say material wealth in terms of minerals, or how do you become independent?
Well, again, as probably it goes back to the same point. It's how the mind operates and how that brings certain things to happen. Knowledge and the skills cannot be landlocked. So on that we have invested in our people, and we encourage our people to acquire knowledge, to acquire skills, and we make the kinds of investments we are able to make. And once people have knowledge and have skills, they will go out anywhere and do a job and earn a living and feed their families, and others will create jobs for themselves and for others as well. So that sometimes there are ways you can go around these obstacles. You have just to be smart and think correctly, and being landlocked should not lock up our minds as well. So we need to think out of that and be able to move out of that. So, but to the earlier point, yes, this is the unfortunate part. Indeed, even Rwanda, like many other African countries, we depend so much on assistance from outside. We still need that. But every day should remind us that this is not a sustainable situation. And there is no reason as to why we should forever depend on other people. We may depend on them for a short time, but we need to free ourselves from this dependence, because what does really dependence mean? It means the deprivation of our own dignity, in fact our own freedoms and rights to be who we should be. If you have to be dictated to by somebody else, and for sure this is very clear, whoever feeds you, whoever you depend on, will always dictate to you many things, including some of the things that should not happen at all. And in any case, the question is why? Why should it happen like this? Why the other one? Why should they be where I want to be also, and I cannot be there? This is the puzzle we must address. This is the struggle. This is, I think, constantly what we need to be working on to make sure that in the end, the seemingly weak position we are in is turned into a position of strength.
Your Excellency, finally on the economy. As a country, the dynamics have changed. It's from being an agricultural-based economy to, say now, tourism, which is contributing a lot into the economy. What are the priority sectors for you as a government?
Well, I'll start with, say, agriculture, because we want to feed our people. We need people who can, and all our people should be able, and increasingly they are being able to put food on the table. But not only that, they don't stop there. We need to take that beyond just putting food on the table, but also avail incomes to homesteads, to families, and so on and so forth. And that is happening because there is increasing export, coffee, tea, and different kinds. In fact, we are also finding that our people are growing sufficient. They are having very good harvest across the board, and exporting to neighboring countries. They are taking food to neighboring countries and selling it. Yeah. Rwanda is becoming a bread basket for the region. But we're also aware agriculture has its own limitations, especially in Rwanda, in our own case. The size of land, population growing, the land is not growing. In fact, the arable land is, yes, shrinking. So we know we cannot forever grow this agriculture. There is a certain limitation. So immediately, or even before we come to that, we've been thinking of how to diversify our economy. And we've seen different other sectors of our economy grow very fast and have a huge potential, and that's how tourism comes in. We've seen tourism grow. In 2010, we had about 700,000 visitors here. We realized $250 million US from that tourism alone. So this is a huge thing, and therefore we need to make sure that what can help grow tourism will be put in place, and different kinds of services, hotels, and different things that bring together service tourism industry to grow will be worked on. We've seen mining grow. We've seen, in fact, services industry in general grow, financial services and different in the areas of telecoms and IT. And so we have invested heavily in technology. We are now providing broadband across the country. We're just going the last mile connectivity from the main backbone to homes, to offices, and so on and so forth. And this has a huge potential in actually growing the economy. It enables every individual, initially poor or others who are doing fine, to actually move even far ahead and fast. So these are the key areas. But above all, we know many of these things will not work unless we have energy. So we are grappling with this problem. It has been a sharp problem for many years, but I think we will get to resolve that. We need to power these industries that we want to grow, and we need to light our homes, our streets, and from this activity increases, and you see big gaps being filled by the kinds of growth that comes from it.
Your Excellency, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we will be speaking about His Excellency's views on the East African community. You're watching a special edition of On the Spot. Don't go away.